the Surgical Capacity Force is actually a group of volunteers across the federal government who will, when activated, will deploy with FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency. So I was called up to go to Yakima, Washington, and Tucson, Arizona, where I helped the federal, state, and local officials to craft a message, a message that would combat a lot of the misinformation we were getting. So, and also, since I was a nurse, I was qualified to draw up the vaccines and hand it out to the nurses and the paramedics and stuff who were out there actually administering it. And for that, our Administrator Regan, personally wrote me and thought it was a pretty good thing. I hear you. So we were awarded done for that.
The humility coming out. I know you were doing a lot of big things, as we would say, a lot of big things happening during the pandemic, a time that, it was really, really, really sensitive. And with your background and experiences in the combat and medical and jumping out of the helicopters as a medic and stuff like that, you were able to use that same force and jump into action to assist us during that period of the pandemic. And really, that's, I would say, hats off and salute to you, because we really, I know it nationwide, we appreciate all people like yourself, the efforts that people like yourself did. So if I want to just move into something else along the same line, what, if you look back on your career, what stands out as your most outstanding achievement?
I think one of the most outstanding things, I would think, was the development of the saliva antibody test that they actually use for COVID. And I'd been developing that since I got to the EPA in 2007. We did studies in Puerto Rico, on the beaches in Puerto Rico. So swimmers who went, we would look inside their saliva, a drop of your saliva, and look for multiple things. We call it a multiplex. So that I'm one of those people who kind of don't like to be boxed in. And I always think of, since the science that we do is like I always describe it like we work in the dark.
Yes.
Right. Things that have not yet been discovered. And to me, that new knowledge is really exciting. And the development of that saliva assay was, I did it for hepatitis A, which is one of those viruses that will destroy your liver. If you ever go to a bathroom at a restaurant and you see workers must wash their hands before going back to work, that's one of the main reasons, hepatitis A. And the noroviruses, which shut down cruise ships. So we could see the antibodies. So the whole basis for that study is that we know that if you're exposed to something, the antibodies will be in your blood, but there are two little holes in the back, right back there. We call it the clavicular space, where the antibodies come through and circulate, because they're always looking. The immune system is always patrolling, like soldiers, or the Navy or Air Force. So I think by using that to know, one of the biggest things in that project was something we observed in Puerto Rico, and we actually published it. So if you notice, you're from Jamaica, right? So you know how our oceans are blue and clear. You can see down, and so that tells you, when we look at something that's pretty contaminated, it is usually you'll see it turbidity, a
Yes,
lot
yes,
of
yes,
dirt, a
yes,
lot of
yes,
mud and
yes.
stuff. So um, all water is so clear. So we looked in the water, they didn't see much, and then they didn't get symptoms. But so pretty much I thought that that was a failure. But when I came as an immunologist, I said,
Yes,
no, it's not. I said, I will, the way you design a project like that would not be to go and test people who actually live and recreate in that area, because they won't have symptoms. Every time they go in the water, they are actually getting a booster shot. So they won't, unless the amount of organisms in the water is way above what the limit that the immune system can handle, you won't have symptoms, but I will see it in you. We call that something now everybody will know: asymptomatic infection.
right. Something now that
If you
everybody will know.
right, because when remember the reason they were quarantining people for COVID for 14 days was because the virus, the SARS-CoV-2 virus, would infect you, but you will have no symptoms for 14 days. And all during that time, you are just spreading it. And that is one of the
Yes.
few organisms. That's the first time we saw that. So that's why I think one of the reasons COVID spread so rapidly, because people didn't know they had it. And that was a brilliant thing that the virus evolved to do. So it caught us by complete surprise.
So I hear you going down to that that passion area that you have, and that serious area, which is of course very, very important. And thank God we're riding the waves to get out of it, and know that it still exists to some extent there, but we're riding the waves out. And for that, I mean, my little space that I had, I spent almost 13 years with the pharmaceutical company. So I'm familiar with the healthcare industry, and also managing some medical centers after that. So over 20 years, 2 decades of it. So I do understand where you're coming from there, but I want to move away from the health side of things to hear a little bit more about you, the man behind this research, and that I want to hear a little bit more, share a little bit more about you. And let me just ask you, is there any challenges that you had to overcome during your career as far as its success? Nothing comes easy, right?
No,
Nothing comes
because of
easy.
how we look.
Yes, yes.
And especially when we're immigrants.
Yes, yes.
To this country. It's a beautiful country. I love this country. Served it in the military in uniform and been combat with them. But thing is, most of the time, people don't tend to believe that you know what you're talking about, even if you're the only one with that qualification, which I was actually, and still am here. So what I just described to you about the asymptomatic infections, it took them almost 7 years to believe me. They would not let me publish it because they just could not understand what I was saying, until at a conference, they came and heard. Some in my management were actually there in a national conference. And one of the experts that they knew and respected asked them, well, what is it about what he's saying you don't understand? And he put it in some simple terms for them. And he said, well, why should they get sick? Because it's their poop. They recreate in their poop. It won't make them sick. But if you go and you recreate in their poop, then you are liable to get sick. And from then, they started
they accepted it and thing.
Yes.
So that's an outstanding challenge that you had to go through, and 7 years of it. Wow, I know. 7 years. That is really, really something.
For people who don't really understand immunology, and that you see a lot of the misinformation that we got during the pandemic was that the success of all the vaccines before tetanus, and
Yes.
all those things that we got before caused people to get complacent.
Yes. Oh, yes.
And they started to believe things that don't exist.
Mm.
Actually, that misinformation is wrong, and I dare say that I believe that misinformation has been responsible for a lot of deaths
Mm.
globally. And
Very,
the
very.
people who were spreading it and are still spreading it and are responsible for doing that. Actually, it was just only about 12 people globally that were the leaders of pushing this misinformation for their
Mhm.
own reasons.
Very,
Some
very,
because they wanted to sell horse medicine to you, and others because they just anti-establishment, anti-government, anti-science,
very,
anti-everything.
very, very.
We have gotten to a point where people do not trust the government and they do not trust science. However,
Right.
when they get a heart attack, they run to the science.
Of course. Of course. You don't believe in God, but when something happens, you're running to God, right?
Yes,
Same
exactly.
kind of things. All right. So you want to just, as we're winding down and you've shared with us, what are some hobbies that you have, things that you enjoy doing? Now, talking about the
Oh,
gentleman himself now.
I enjoy gardening. I enjoy
Wow.
music. Behind me is a whole band with keyboards and drums and guitars and everything else. I'm a musician too. I've been playing the guitar in church since I was nine. So I used to write music, and
You
so
do?
I just love dancing and music, and I
Right.
love
Yes.
staying fit and exercising.
Oh, okay. So that's maybe what I
Um,
saw in DC when you were after the award that you got an award in DC, right? When I was there as
right.
well.
Uh-huh.
What was the award?
Say again.
What was the award that you got with
Oh,
the
Caribbean, the
yes,
Caribbean American Heritage Award
yes,
for
yes.
outstanding contributions to public health. Oh, and you were a wonderful host because you were my host for the gala.
Okay.
So it was a
Okay. No,
wonderful thing.
yes, yes, yes. So I'm remembering you, seeing you out there and enjoying yourself afterwards. But I didn't know that side of you, that you do music as well. So I guess that you're not an Einstein because you're also balanced with music and gardening and all of that. So you're not just focused on the academic research side or anything like that. That investigative nature is in you, and it's coming back way from when you're a nurse, police officer, and all of that. So all of that came together and into something that was wonderful to help us to survive, I think, and thrive. So that is
Yes.
actually very good. Tell me about a preferred getaway, vacation getaway. Something simple and fun.
My preferred getaway will happen real soon. I'm going home to Dominica, but I'll be traveling back and forth. And Dominica is
Okay.
my preferred
So,
getaway
but
always. But
Dominic,
I haven't been home since 2006.
wow. So let's take a pin there. What is there that you like so much about Dominica? Not because you're born there, right?
No, Dominica is the nature island of the Caribbean. It is one of those. It's it's starting to develop now. We
Yes.
haven't gotten to the stage where we like Jamaica and Trinidad and Barbados, but we are getting up there and
Yes.
working on an international airport, our first one. And
Oh, wow.
so I think with just the waterfalls and the rivers, and we have 365 rivers, one for
Mm,
every day of the year.
mm,
Lush green forest, the only boiling lake in the Caribbean and the second largest boiling lake on earth. We have a big freshwater lake. So Dominica is floating with water. There's an abundance of water, but then
yeah.
again, in the abundance of
So
You know,
I am a
who
water
say in the
person too.
abundance of water, the fool
I
is
love it.
thirsty.
Maybe because I'm from the Caribbean too, and it's land of wood and water. So I love the water. Anything water
Right.
just inspires me. I write as well as do. I'm not sure if you're aware, but I do some writing on, and I actually enjoy that. And my place to run away to, one of my books is called My Safe Place. And my favorite place to run away to is the beach. So the beach
Yes.
inspires me. Beach just, you know, does something different that makes you start writing, and just brings you to that space. So I enjoy that.
Me too. I do.
That's good. What about the favorite food?
Whew. My favorite food is oxtails, right? And oxtails and fish. Oxtails and fish.
That's interesting.
I
Oxtail.
wouldn't go into curried. I wouldn't go into curried goat and all this other stuff because that's all I thought. My wife is from here, and I had to teach her to cook all those things, and she loves it. And I can't wait to take her home.
So you had her an immersion into those kind of cooking and food and Caribbean. So,
Oh, you know, we use a lot of spices. We
of
use a lot of
course.
spices. And that is what the smells, the flavors. We full of it, just like our colors.
Yes, yes, yes. So it has been a pleasure chatting with you. And again, I speak to people like Dr. Augustine to find out what sparks your engine. And especially Dr. Augustine in this case, because he is in that serious zone, but at the same time has this other side that brings a sense of balance. And I think that was what intrigued me before when I couldn't understand why he was that. And I like to use the word Einstein. So yeah, I hope this conversation has inspired others, because that's the reason for it, to go out there and grasp the success that they want, because I know it wasn't easy for you to do. And can you share any last words, and to also share where they can find you if they want to, anyone wants to reach out to you?
Yes. So the final thing I would say is that everybody I mentor, I've mentored a lot of people, postdoctoral fellows,
Yes,
graduate students, and
yes,
even down to the high school level.
yes,
And everyone I mentor, I always tell them the first thing I would tell them is introduce them to 3 poems.
yeah,
Well, for me, 3 poems actually guide my life. One is the Song of the Banana Man from the Caribbean. The
okay,
tourist white man wiping his face met me in Golden
yes,
Grove Marketplace and
yes, yes,
looked at my old clothes brown with stain and turned up his nose and said, "You must be a beggar man, I suppose."
I suppose.
But that banana man was who was feeding the world,
Yes,
right?
yes,
So, and he said,
yes,
"I'm a proud man, I'm a strong man.
yes,
I don't look at me with my scrappy clothes.
yes,
I'm more than what you see." This
yes,
second one is something, the road not taken by Robert Frost.
okay.
2 roads diverge in the woods. So if you want to stand out and to do something different, you can't follow the crowd. Right?
Ah,
If you follow the crowd, you will end up the same place where everybody's going.
exactly.
But in Robert Frost's case, he traveled the road. He went the way that was less traveled, and it made all the difference. And it's the same for me.
Yeah,
And then the last one is the ladder of St. Augustine, incidentally, is my last
yeah,
name.
right.
So, but the verse that most people know from that poem by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow is, "The heights by great men reached and kept were not attained by sudden flight, but they, while their companions slept, were toiling upwards through the night." That poem is actually, to me, a standard operating procedure for success. It's from
Yes.
verse 1 down, and
Mm.
basically it's he's St. Augustine was a religious philosopher, a well-known religious
Right,
philosopher,
right, right.
and Longfellow had studied him, and he
Mhm.
said, "Well hast thou said, that from all your faults, all your evils, all everything else, if you can use them as the rungs of a ladder to climb
Yeah.
to the very top, the summit, wherever you want to go to, you can do it step by step and verse by verse. You follow it and you see." And basically, one of the things in that poem is, if you are looking at a mountaintop or you're looking at the pyramids in Giza, right? If you're looking at it from afar, it looks like, whoa, I can't get there. But
Yes. All
as
right.
you get closer, you start to see that the pyramids are just a bunch
Possibility
of steps.
exists. Yes.
Yes, a bunch of steps to climb. And
Yes.
when the
Yes.
mountains, there are tracks, people have been there.
Yes.
So you can. So
Yeah.
I would encourage people to read and
Read.
to go beyond what you think.
Right.
There is a beyond. um,
Yes.
you don't have to be a scientist. You can make your impact. You can make your impact on a global impact, or your local impact, national impacts, international impacts, by being focused, totally focused. Yes, have fun. I have fun.
Right. Yes. Yes.
But
Yes.
when I have to do the work, I focus on what I have to do.
Right.
I set my schedules. I'm diligent about what I have to do, and I am not afraid to ask questions
Mhm.
because I do not know everything.
Yes.
The thing I have learned the most is that when I work in a multidisciplinary team, virologists who look at viruses, microbiologists, immunologists, we have epidemiologists, and even an engineer and data analyst. We work together.
Yes.
And while I may see the immunology when I look at the data,
Yes.
the engineer is seeing something else, and the
Yes. Yes.
epidemiologist is
Yes.
doing this
Yes.
part. And so you
Right.
have a complete package.
Right.
Right? And
Right.
so when you present it in either in an oral presentation, a poster, or a manuscript, or a published paper,
Mhm.
the audience can understand what it is. Sometimes I try my best when I write to write in a way that the normal regular
Right.
person
Yeah, that's
can
important.
understand.
That's very important.
Yes, a lot of people, scientists especially, we like to talk in scientific jargon. When
Right.
I'm talking to other scientists, I will do that. But when I talk to others, I will try to break it down, because one of my professors, and she was a white lady. She called herself my educational mother at Tribeca Nazarene University in Nashville.
Yes.
She
Yeah.
said to me, "You're a very bad student. You're a bad student. She said, you're not a good student." For her, she was head of the Department of Microbiology and the science building. She was just the director, and she said, Dr. Anfukwe, she has passed away sadly.
Mm.
May she rest in peace. She said,
Mm.
I said, but I'm getting A's. So why am I a bad student? She said, if I have to evaluate my professors, I can't use you. You know how to learn. But she said, she said, a great teacher, and if you ever want to teach, a great teacher is the one who can take a complex thought
And bring it down.
and break it down so that the average person can go and they understand it and take it and
Right.
share it.
Right.
And I have always remembered that. So I try to write my papers that way. Sometimes they want you to write with some of the jargon, but I would much rather break it down in a simpler way, because some people, like you told me when you read my bio, some of the words you can't pronounce because some of those you
Of
know, the
course.
scientific language is a
Yes, the
different
scientific
kind of
language.
animal,
Yes, the host.
right? It's mixed up with Greek and it's mixed up with Latin. It's mixed up with
Yes, 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 yes,
everything,
yes, yes, yes.
but it's fun. So that's it. And the what I would like to tell, especially the young people of the Caribbean,
Yes,
because I am usually engrossed in news. As a former journalist, news
yes,
is my thing.
yes,
So I always hear about the young people of the Caribbean getting discouraged. They getting, the thing is, I came from the east of the island, and we
yes.
grew up. When I grew up, we had no running water, no paved roads, no electricity,
Mm-hmm.
and that made me understand that it's not where you start.
Ah.
It's never where you start.
Yes,
The journey is
yes,
where you want to go.
yes,
You have a vision,
yes,
develop a vision of where you want to go.
yes.
And when you've made up your mind, because I do believe in something called the secret, that if, like Henry Ford said, if you believe you can, you are right.
You're right.
But if you believe you cannot,
You're
you are
also
also
so right.
correct.
Yes.
So think positively. I'm not spreading a religion of positive
No,
thought,
no, no.
but
I
it
understand. I
is the
understand because
universe
I
seed,
believe
the
exactly what you're saying. I understand
yes,
100%.
the universe helps us. And
Yes.
life is like a relay race. And I have actually experienced it. When you decide on a career path for your life, everything seems like a blank page, not nobody to support you. But as soon as you take the first step, you will meet the people that are supposed to take you along your journey are already
Yes.
waiting.
Ah.
But if you don't show up, they won't
Ah.
know it's you and you won't know it's them. But as soon
Exactly.
as you do, they will. It will
Yes.
show up. And there are people waiting to take you, and then they will hand you, for just like high
Yes.
school, you get a recommendation for college from your teachers there.
Yes.
Then from college, you get your professors. On the job, your supervisors, and and so on. They are handing you off
Right. Right.
along your path.
Right.
So
Right.
never stop thinking, never stop learning. It's a lifelong thing, and it is very, very fulfilling.
Right. I'm actually a lifelong learner too. I love to learn. I think when I finished my doctoral degree in organizational leadership, you know, when I was looking out before having started the journey, I said, at the end of it, you're going to be so smart. But then when I was done, I realized I'm such an idiot. I still don't know anything in the world. The world it's such a vast arena that there's so many things to learn. And you have said it. You've mentioned about the 3 poems. You've mentioned the mentoring that you do with young people and all of that. And you have inspired me. I'm a leadership coach, but you have inspired me because I work with a lot of young folks as well. And my focus really is on people who are in that stage now that they're doing a career change, right? Over 40, midlife, and oh my God, where am I going to go? But that's my focus of people. But you have inspired me with what your experience is, and I'm really thrilled that I had the opportunity to chat with you. And where can they find you if they want to learn more about
And they can. So I am on LinkedIn
Yes,
under
I saw
my name,
everything.
Swinburne Augustine. I'm on Facebook.
Oh, you are
I'm on
okay.
Twitter at Swinog, and
Oh,
you can go to the US Environmental Protection Agency page and pull up my name, and there my bio will show up. But I must
awesome.
say, you have to
Yes.
do that. If you're going to look for me at the EPA website, you have to do it by July 4th, Independence Day, because I'll be retiring from the government after 25 years.
Wow. Well, so
And
you say
I
they may
am,
call you back as some resource.
yeah, so I am
That's a
hoping
whole
that
other conversation as to what next for you and all. I told you that's my target. People
again,
and leaders I like to talk with. What next?
what's next?
Dominica. Yes.
Yeah, not just Dominica, because during the pandemic, actually, one of the biggest things, and although going on President Biden's national vaccine campaign was big, the next biggest thing I think in my life was that throughout the pandemic, because of the CARA Award, the Caribbean American Heritage
Yes,
Award,
yes.
most of the TV stations and radios around the Caribbean and newspapers asked me to write. I wrote articles, and I was on almost every day, how many times a day I was on TV explaining. So what Dr. Fauci was doing here, I was doing throughout the Caribbean, to minority communities here in the United States, and even in Africa, and Africans in Canada and in Africa. So I think giving people the correct information so that they can make a wise decision that would actually save their lives. I think if I help to save one life, because a lot of people called and said, thank you, the way you described it made sense, and I went and I took my vaccine. In fact, one major singer in the Caribbean who has become my friend now, he's one of the Zouk music, which is that Creole music. He's from Martinique, actually, a French island. And he called the radio station back home because they heard me, and the manager of the radio station called me and said, could you talk to him, because he's not anti-vaccine, but he may have some comorbidities and he's afraid. So he called, I explained it to him. He went and he said, what can I do for you? I said, only one thing. Since you are very popular, globally, you have a global presence, could you encourage others to take the vaccines? Wonderful. And he has been helpful. So I am looking forward to meeting him someday.
Of course, that's a wonderful success story and a perfect place for us to end. Again, thank you so much, Dr. Augustine. We really appreciate what you're doing throughout the United States and worldwide as people reach out to you to share your knowledge and skills. Thank you so much for accepting my invitation to chat with me here. And it has been a pleasure to learn so much more about you. For me, I can be found that I'm on LinkedIn as well, but at my website on shellycameron.com, pretty easy to find. Thanks again, and it has really been a pleasure chatting with you.
And I will, I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to share, and I look forward to seeing you at the next gala. I'll be there every year. And this year, I'll be bringing a whole lot of people with me.
Awesome, great. Thank you.